but a character. A character driven by one cause. A character that's driven by one cause at hand to deliver the objectives that ought to address the challenge at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying and strongly believe is that the ultimate measure of leadership is not a position, but the character of the citizen that works towards the realization of the African dream, which is its renaissance, irrespective of where they are in their respective organizations and in the society at large. We came to Timali as professionals in our respective fields and disciplines, and each believed that their disciplines are better or more important than the other. It took us just the first day from Dr. Zondi to understand that professionalism is just the way of thinking, acting, and approaching life in general. That the disciplines we are trained in only confines us in one way of viewing life and its challenges. You must take note of how disciplinarians speak, of course. Statistically speaking, you will not understand this thing if you're not a statistician. Or you will not understand this thing if you're not an economist. That's how disciplinarians speak. We understand that central to Africa's development should be learning to understand that only through knowledge that is critical and scientifically sound shall we be able to architect a way forward to Africa's development. That there is no sovereignty in discipline if their ultimate existence and mandate is to address the issues of development in our continent. We are truly happy to be awarded with the certificates this evening. We are even happier that we will be shaking the hand of the patron. And of course, taking the best popular picture as well. And we promise you, the patron, that it would be on Facebook just a few hours. This certificate shall be cherished, perhaps differently to the ones we receive from the disciplines. We are not hoping to find better jobs with them. They remain a constant reminder in our respective work that we do, that tell all that we do be the step towards the realization of the African dream, a vision towards the African Renaissance. I thank you.
Wow. Wow. Well, UNISA and Thabo Mbeki Foundation, I'm sure this affirmation today by these two students indeed says the decision you took to partner in this program was a correct one. Dr. Zondi. Dr. Zondi, the head of the Institute for Global Dialogue. He's one of the teachers in Timali. And I must say he's one among those, like Tresana, who really took courage and decided to be the first volunteers in this program. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. Later, they were followed by Ms. Pegu, by Vusi. All of them, I say, how courageous are they? Because the people they have to engage with are not so quiet or introverts. You saw with the two that were here, very engaging. But more importantly, they had faith in the program itself, but also they had faith in the students. And I want to say to UNISA, thank you for taking an unorthodox rule, because a majority of our first teachers, our volunteers, were not the members of staff, academic staff of UNISA. You had to find a way with council to make sure that it works. So you thought outside of the box, and in part, you followed your vision of being an African university in service of humanity. You had to find a way, rather than following the dogma of what is required in a university institute. Dr. Zondi, just tell us how these students have been.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and one of our former students, and the former minister, former student, one of those who did not submit on time on one occasion, but who still passed. Thank you very much. Patron, good evening, sir. We usually say good morning with my class. Good morning, class. Yes, yes. So we're very educated, as you can see. They all can respond to a teacher properly in a chorus, which is very good. Former Deputy President and head of the UN Women, Mama Mpegi, the principal of the university and the management of the university, the trustees of TMF, students who call themselves Timalize, which means we should be called Timalizers, because we are the ones who create them. So we Timalizers, also, good evening, all protocols observed. I'd like to start with a quotation, and they like that. They know that I like starting with a quotation, and I like quoting the ones that I'm almost certainly sure they have never heard of, never read about, because most of them would have come from the education system I'm familiar with. And one of those would be Sekou Toure, who says, "We ask, therefore, not to judge us or think of us in terms of what we were, or even of what we are, but rather to think of us in terms of history and what we will be." And that is the thinking that has informed our approach to the task that has been given to us and the opportunity that we had in facilitating the learning of these thought leaders. We don't call ourselves teachers, neither do we call ourselves facilitators. We see ourselves as catalysts in shaping how these thought leaders become themselves. So we are reminded of what Frantz Fanon said, as I walk on this earth, every day I make myself. So we believe they are making themselves, and that all that we do is to provide some sort of guidelines and support, edging and a tough look and a good look in response to what they do. So I stand here on behalf of the teachers or the Timalizers, honored to have been part of this. You know, teaching or handling this task involving these thought leaders has been difficult for two reasons. The first reason is that they expect more than an ordinary tutor from us. They expect more than what you would find in a normal lecturer and a tutor from us. They expect us to know the African theory. In a society, in an academe that says there is no African theory, for there was no African civilization, there's no African knowledge, there's no African development, there's no African democracy, there's no African culture. But they expect us somehow to know the African theory. That's a tough one, isn't it, guys? Yeah. They expect us also to go to the back of the former president's thinking and explain what he thought about this and what he thought about that and why he said this and why he said this way. And one of the things they expect us to know is to understand, how did he do it that overnight he wrote that I'm an African speech? And what was he actually thinking? For it is obvious that he is an African. And we've often used that to say that you are black, that you were born in Africa, that you live in Africa does not make you an African. It just makes you an inhabitant of Africa. But also that you have an ID, that you have a passport, that you are found in the South African population register or Zambian population register does not make you a Zambian or a South African citizen. It simply makes you an inhabitant. What will make you a citizen is what you do with the affairs of society. So that has been what we do. They also expect us to compare and contrast him with other African leaders, which is quite unfair. And they're even able to condition who you can compare him with. Mugabe. And then they name leaders. And we often try not to do it under serious duress. The second reason it's difficult to teach them is that as tutors, we expect a lot more from them than you would expect from a normal group of learners. We'd expect them to know how to read and write. For normal readers don't know. And we expect them to think creatively and critically, even though we know that the system teaches them to mimic. We expect them to submit stuff on time and in order, not to lose their parents or their grandparents a day before the submission date, and even though this so happens from time to time. And we expect them to think of the course as enabling them to be change agents for an Africa we would like to see. For the one we know, we already know. We don't even want to talk about the one we have. We want them to imagine the one we have. So we do our best to do the following. We do our best to confuse them. Confuse them enough so that they can unlearn what they thought was given about Africa, about Africans in the world. We confuse them about what Africa is. We confuse them about what Africans are. We confuse them about what Africans can't do so that they can think about what Africans can do. We try, or secondly, to intimidate them. To intimidate them so that they can take guidelines, they can take themselves seriously and make a difference even before they leave class. We try to encourage them to think differently about Africans, about the Africans they are, the change agents that are determined to contribute to Africa's renewal. We are confident that we have stimulated the birth of a new cadre of Africans who will, through their thoughts and actions, make a difference in this society. I am more than confident. So to you, class, yes. To you, I say, taking the cue from the Sekou Touré's words we quoted earlier on, I say you can. I say you should catalyze a new Africa. This is the debt you owe to Africa for it to allow you to be born in Africa and to be born in time like this. So go out and make a difference. Thank you very much.
Wow, Dr. Zondi, you have indeed confused us a bit. And yeah, I'm sure those of us who have not been confused in your class have already had a little bit of confusion here, so we would unlearn a bit of what we have been told. Professor Tefo, sitting next to you, as he was listening to those students, in his mind, I'm sure he was thinking, how can I recruit some of the Timalites for the Institute of African Renaissance, for the School of Transdisciplinary? And I'm sure Professor State Parking on the other side was saying, wow, women in research, I can already see where I'm going to give my grant. That one, Professor State Parking will tell you, go to Intcom, you'll see the package she's having, especially for women. It's so nice to be a woman in UNISA. I really tell you, you can take 3 years and go and study to get your doctorate without thinking about UNISA administration and just be part of capacity building, building this cohort of new cadres of this continent. I'd like to invite Professor Mare, very special lady in Timali. She's really babysitted this baby. She has had all the headaches, making sure that the tutors finish whatever curriculum that needs to be presented to Senex at times, and if we're not able to do it, negotiate and beg Senex not to kill us or kill her because she's there for us, to deal with whether we get a my UNISA system in, or, you know, all the administration nitty-gritties that are a headache for many of us. She's been there from 2011 when we started. I'm not sure how you have done it, but you have. Today, we can be proud and look at this baby together with you, having grown. You have had to answer the principal in the management board meetings of Timali with TMF, and all of us asking why is the budget not done or why not approved. And at times, I felt Pro-Vice Chancellor, you know, Pro-Vice Chancellor Bejnath and Makanya VC were not so kind to you, and sometimes finance, but you soldier on. And at times we will come from TMF and say, but now why? And you never agonized. You always said, we will find a problem. The interesting part was last year, when we were all excited that we wanted an academic procession. We had not even thought about the registrar, that we needed to involve him. We got that last minute, and we didn't even have the gowns prepared. We all jumped around, and you were there. Thank you very much, Professor Maria. And I would like to say thank you to UNISA management for the support they have given to this baby, making sure that at Senex, at MENCOM, all the necessary decisions that will make Timali do its work are taken on time. Welcome, Professor Maria, to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Toko Dediza, and thank you for that introduction. May I just, before I go on to the formal part of doing why I'm here, of saying what I have to say, just say it has been for me an honor and privilege to be associated with Tamale. And I'm extremely proud of what this institute has achieved. I'm very proud of all its graduates. I'm very proud of the involvement of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. And I'm extremely proud of the new staff of the Tamale and what they are doing. And I want to thank UNISA management for allowing me and giving me the opportunity to be involved with Tamale from its inception. And I also want to say one thing is quite correct what you're saying. It is wonderful to be a woman at UNISA. And I also need to correct you that Professor Makanya and the PVC has never been unkind to me. They've always supported me, but it has been a difficult road, but it's been a wonderful road. And thank you very much to everyone. Former President of South Africa and patron of the Thabo Mbeki an African Leadership Institute, Mr. Thabo Mbeki and Mrs. Mbeki. The Principal and Vice Chancellor of UNISA, Professor Mandla Makanya. The Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Bejnath. The Vice Principal, Research and Innovation, Professor Pakeng. Vice Principal, Institutional Development, Professor Kobela. The Vice Principal, Operations, Professor Erasmus. Trustees of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. The UN Resident Representative, Dr. Agostino Zacharias. Directors General and the Statistician General. Members of Tamale Management Board. Members of Tamale Scientific Committee. Management and staff of UNISA. The CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, head of Tamale and Tamale lecturers, Tamale students and partners and parents, program director, and invited guests. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the keynote speaker for this auspicious occasion. Ms. Phumzile Mlambo Nkuka was the Deputy President of South Africa from 2005 to 2008, the first woman to hold the position of Deputy President in the Republic of South Africa. She obtained a BA in Social Science and Education at the University of Lesotho in 1980. She worked in KwaZulu-Natal as a teacher from 1981 to 1983 and was the director of the Young Women's International Program at the Young Women's Christian Association office in Geneva from 1984 to 1987. Her work in civil society has focused on women, education, and poverty reduction. In 1996, she was appointed Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, where she led the support programs and legislation for small business and support for women-owned enterprises. She was in the ANC's National Executive Committee during 1997 to 2007. In 1999, she became Minister of Minerals and Energy, where she pioneered many changes in the mining industry. Among other things, she initiated the South African Women in Mining Association, and she also started Women in Oil and Energy South Africa to support and develop women's involvement in these industries. She was also briefly Minister of Culture, Science and Technology. She became Deputy President of South Africa in June 2005, where she focused on the socio-economic transformation, education and poverty reduction. She's a former and first president of Natal Organization for Women. She's a trustee of Mandela Rhodes Foundation on Education, a member of Global Leaders Council, which is concerned with the MGG5 on reproductive health, a trustee of Global Fund for Women, and a founder and chairperson of Handisa Finance, which supports entrepreneurs and prioritizes women. And she's a patron of the Girl Guides in South Africa. She's the founder and chair of Umlambo Foundation, which deals with education and leadership development for school principals. She has just been appointed to head the United Nations Women. She holds an MA in Educational Planning and Management, which she completed in 2000 from the University of Cape Town. She's scheduled to defend her PhD at the University of Warwick in the United Kingdom. It's my honor and privilege to request the keynote speaker to come forward and deliver the keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director and Professor Marais, for that kind introduction. Sometimes when you listen to that, you think, oh, obituary. You learn to sit through it, but thank you so much for that. I will try not to greet everybody because they have already been greeted, but I have to greet former President of South Africa and the patron of Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, Sis Zanele, Mrs. Mbeki, the Principal and Vice Chancellor of UNISA, Professor Mandla Makanya, the Timalites and the Timalizers and the Timald. You will fall into one of the categories. I regard myself as a generally Timalized person because I think I really owe my current status, and many other things to the patron. He took a chance on me. And I was clear that I cannot disappoint him. So hold on to that dream. Think about what the patron would think whenever you are just about to detour. And think about him also critically, because he does not expect you to follow him blindly. I remember when I was going to be appointed as deputy president, I was on a trip to New York to engage with the diamond industry. At that time, we were changing parts of the legislation to do with diamonds in South Africa. And as you know, New York has an intense representation of the diamond industry. So I needed to make sure that I take them on board, and I didn't want havoc in the South African diamond industry and the world in general, seeing that South Africa is such a big player in that industry. It was also important because we're also going to be introducing what we call the Kimberley process, which was an effort to fight blood diamonds. And I also wanted them to buy in. When you're trying to bring together sellers of diamonds, buyers of diamonds, regulators of diamond, and any tsotsi in between in the diamond industry, and there's lots of them. That was quite a challenge. So I really had to reflect about how I was going to get this going. In addition, there was a big controversy because one of the countries that is very active in this industry, province, is Taiwan. And China was clear, you are not going to have them as a standalone entity. You have to bring them within China. And we knew that that would be a gap in the process. And at the same time, we were not going to be politically incorrect and tried to insist. So we worked out with the team who was going to be a bad cop and who was going to be a good cop as far as that is concerned, so that we could get China to collaborate and cooperate with us. And in the end, we did not quite make Taiwan to be Taiwan. We did not quite make them to be a province, but everybody signed. Don't ask me how. And those are some of the wisdom in the wee hours of the morning that I got from the patron. So, as the envelope once said to the stamp, "Stick with me, baby, we'll go places." Stick with the patron and you will go places. So it is a great honor for me to deliver this keynote address to this august occasion. I have to confess that I'm intimidated by the previous speakers. And it's good to feel intimidated by younger people, because it means that the world is getting better, because they are cleverer than you are. So it really is nice to get older and to know that you've given birth, now I'm taking the glory, you've given birth to cleverer children. And first and foremost, education has remained very close to many of our hearts in this room, and profoundly to me in particular, because to me it is the ultimate equalizer that can take millions of our people out of poverty. While education is not a panacea for all social ills, quality public education is the closest thing to a panacea and a medicine for all ills, uzifo zonke. Secondly, this certificate ceremony is happening in 2013, which is a significant year for the African continent, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the AU, and Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance is the theme for the anniversary. Thirdly, it is good to see so many friends and colleagues from my previous lives. Some of them I haven't seen for a long time. So just net for that, it's good to be here. And of course, the fourth thing is that it is my first time to make a speech in front of my boss for life since I became the designated UN and Undersecretary and the Executive Director of UN Women. So, of course, this for me is also intimidating. So, you know, you can just imagine. But lastly, and most importantly, 2013 Timali students. It is because of you that you are here, we are here. We celebrate your success. Today is special because we're here with future leaders. And the little that we have seen tells us that our future is in good hands. Of all the reasons that make this occasion special, it is that we congratulate you who have met the requirements for the short learning program that you were enrolled for. And based on what I've heard from yourselves and from your sir with love, Dr. Zondi, it is a tough one. So it's not a small thing that today you are graduating. So give yourself a real big round of applause. It is also exciting to hear about the future plans for Timali, especially that additional short learning program, such as that edition on gender and African feminist studies that would be introduced in 2014. The plans for postgraduate diploma that are progressing well. And of course, I'm an interested party as far as that is concerned. And I say this because it is clearly closing a gap in the training of thought leaders for our continent and research on Africa's development. Timali's aspiration to be Pan-African Center of Excellence in Africa, in African thought leadership for Africa's renewal is the most important vision that an African university in service of humanity should be embracing. Our continent is called upon again and again to find homegrown solutions to our African problems and our African development. The historical experience of colonialism, imperialism, and other injustices visited on our continent and her peoples, and the threat of the second scramble demands of us and our institutions of higher learning to ensure that an African thought leadership cadre is created. Determining our destiny and fulfilling our mission requires us to fully understand the challenges and the potential solutions for our continent. There is a particular African that our continent yearns for, and institutions of higher learning should be harnessing that African. The African I'm talking about, though I cannot claim to talk with authority on this